Oh, so this is the contemplation of things that we should evaluate when we're looking at this particular text. The art of peace, as with the art of war, is of valid importance to the state. You know, the balance between it's almost like the balance between uh, aggressive type of action and action that is non-aggressive. You know, there must be a balance between the two. The world itself has both, so therefore we have to look at it in terms of how we are going to react or interact with the world. So the art of peace, which is, you know, the peaceful act, the religious aspect, or you know, the aspect which is going to maintain our own personal, not only our own personal, but for also for other people, capability to deal with the problems that will arise, because problems will arise. And the art of war, which is the logical understanding of what you must do or what you should or should not do when complications arise. Is that the art of peace, as with the art of war, is of virtual importance to the state. And it goes on later on, and it says something that it's a matter of life and death. Very important to be able to understand things and to be able to decipher, you know, what is necessary. The action of doing what's necessary does not have to be 100% correct. It has to be correct, which is a difference. You don't have to be 100% correct in what you do, but you should understand that the actions that you're doing right now are 100% correct for the time that you're executing these particular actions. So around 500 BC, the great Chinese general Sun Tzu lived. He wrote in death about the art of success and conquest in his book, The Art of War. I really like this book, The Art of War, because it is exactly what it says. In The Art of War, they talk about the idea of that in going forward, in making decisions or drawing conclusions of what should be done, that we should not make mistakes, basically, right? The antidote to making bad decisions is that of not making bad decisions. And how do you do that? Well, you do that based upon the contemplation of what's going on right now. You base what you're doing not about what somebody might think that you should have done, you know, say 100 or 200 years after, but you do it based upon what you understand and the conditions that you're subjected to right now, right? And this is not the same thing as living, as people say, living in the here and now, which I have no idea what that means. But this is goal-oriented contemplation and goal-oriented decisions that we're talking about. We want to be able to, at a particular time in the future, achieve such and such a thing. So therefore, at this particular time, this is the foundation of the conditions in which we create the causes, because we're merely talking about the cause and effect relationship between things. So if the correct causes are there, then the results are likely to come. You know, of course, in between there might be many different types of obstructions that arise that might cause you to, you know, do it a little bit different, but still the goal remains the same. And this is the balance between the thought of the art of war and the art of peace, right? The art of peace sets the foundation in which how we should maintain ourselves. This is almost like the the moral aspect. And you'll see later on in the book, Sang Sui also talks about. As stated in this text, the art of war is governed by 5 constant factors to be taken into account in one's deliberation when seeking to determine the conditions obtained in the field. So he is talking from the point of view of the military aspect of it, you know, and you'll see in the 5 situations, which also can be applied to the art of peace. You know, we should contemplate this well. But right now, what we're talking about is in terms of the art of war, because the art of war is in terms of the art of conquest. You know, you have an opponent and you're trying to put yourself in the best situation in which that you will be able to achieve success, which is not an isolated factor from the art of peace, because we still have opponents and we still have things that we have to be able to deal with. So the whole thing about it is to understand what we're doing is setting a template of contemplation. What we have is a foundation and basis that we can fall back on when confusion arises. So this is like if you were in the army or something like that, this would be falling back on your training. If you're if you're a Buddhist, this means falling back upon your training, right? Each training has a different emphasis. One emphasis is more toward that of the aggressor. The other emphasis is toward that of the non-aggressor, being able to deal and understand what the situation is. Although in the art of war, they do say that the superior general is one who engages with his enemy and defeats them without firing a shot. Which I would argue that this is more within the terms of the art of peace. You know, peace is not benign. Peace is something you have to work for. There must be an objective of achieving peace, right? It's like the factors of hot and cold. In order to stave off the cold, you must have a constant capability of generating heat. So it's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. And if we contemplate well, we'll be able to see and understand and meditate on these various factors. This is what we call, in Tibetan, it would be Chegong, or examinatory meditation. Meditation is you sit and you contemplate the factors in order to understand why we are doing such and such a thing. So we're building the foundation or a template of something. Anili, you wanted to say something?
Question. Would you say that the art of war principles are more focused on conflict resolution, either in any type of situation, while the art of peace is more focused on pursuing one's goal in peaceful situations? Or this is not a good understanding?
I think they're intertwined.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that you should look at it in terms of being intertwined is because the conditions that present ourselves are not stagnant. They're not something that you can come up with a general idea of how obstructions are going to appear to us. So I would look at it in dealing with it is that in some cases, you know, in the art of war, that the capability of the art of peace, you know, shines better, right? It shines more because of the reason that the contemplation is based upon not conquest in terms of not conquest in terms of defeating one's enemy. Whereas the art of war is the conquest is you have a bona fide enemy. That is what you're trying to overcome. The art of peace is the idea of goal, more goal oriented in terms of, say, like, you know, we talk in terms of liberation, what's necessary for us to be able to liberate ourselves, that war and conflict in itself is not the solution. It looks a little bit deeper and further than that of the art of war. Art of war is definitely military type of what do you call, thought and conquest, but it does have a template, and it does have teachings in it that will allow us to utilize it in terms of the best way in which for us to achieve what we have to achieve. In the art of peace, we want to achieve things like the great compassion, understanding of emptiness, and, you know, whatever it might be. We have a goal that is transcending the goal of the art of war, right? But what I'm saying is that you can't isolate one action from the other, meaning that you have to understand we live within the realm of this particular world, and we should be able to utilize our capabilities in order to continuously go forward, right? To not be able to lose heart in the idea that, well, you know, maybe I'm not capable of, you know. So that's why I say that there's a balance between the two. If you know well the art of peace, then you do know the art of war. You know, if you're trying to train or make somebody understand something, to relinquish one's principles at the expense of one's principles, that we continue or we do something else, is definitely not what we should be doing in terms of the art of war or the art of peace, right? So as we go, and keep that what you just asked in mind, because we'll go deeper into this type of discussion, and it'll become a what do you call it, a more extensive type of contemplation meditation.